All right, so we're going to take a look at creating some basic facial expressions for 3D printing. So I'm just going to go to File, New, Sculpting. I'm not going to save my default scene here. And inside this setup that we have here, um, we have we have our essentially our default. Let's kind of move this off to the side. Default sphere that comes with it. Something I like to do too is if you go to Edit and Preferences, I like to map my clay brush, that's this one here, to its own key map. So what I'll do is under key map here, I go down to 3D view and I expand that and I look for sculpt. And under sculpt here, I go to sculpt global. And any one of the brushes that you have here, you can see the different hotkeys. So for me, what I did is I changed I look for the letter C and I look at, well, which one is mapped for C? Because it's kind of the way I have it for ZBrush as well, and that's my clay buildup. So I'm going down here, you can see C here, and I expand it, and I change the brush to clay strips, which is equivalent to Blender's clay buildup. So now whenever I press the C on my keyboard, you can see it goes to clay strips. So for this particular assignment, what we're going to do is just pick a default pose. We need about 5 different expressions. One is angry, one is sad, one is happy. This one doesn't really have an angry one, so I'm going to maybe lean on something else or grab another picture from pre-ref. But for now, let's go with a default pose. And maybe my character's default pose is something goofy like this. All right, so what I'm going to do here is press G to go to my grab brush, hit F to expand the size, and just sort of push these in a little bit like this to create the eye sockets. So something like that. And I could always kind of move this around with my grab brush. Next thing I'm going to do is hit Tab and go to Object Mode. Oops, it looks like I hit tilde instead, but Tab, go to Object Mode, then hit Shift A and go to Mesh and then Sphere. I'm going to add a UV sphere. And then just hit S to scale that down, G, and move it out here at first. And then I'm going to go up to my Modifier tab here, click Add Modifier and go to Mirror. Oops, let's see, where is my mirror? And I think it's behind this guy right here. So let's kind of move, let's actually just shrink this down a ton. And there we go, it was behind that. So let's go to mirror, and then I'm going to select my head here. All right, what I'm going to do is, again, hit S to scale this down, and G, and just kind of move that into place, like this. And I'm going to scale that up just a little bit. Now what I'd like to do is, out of this same sphere, I'm going to create the eyelids. So let's kind of bring this down just a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is hit Shift D and then Escape, and Shift D again and then Escape. Each one of these spheres, one's going to be the upper lid, lower lid, and one is going to be the eyeball. So for the upper lid here, I'm going to hit Tab and go to Edit Mode. And look for your knife tool, which is this right here, and we're going to go to Bisect. Now this doesn't work unless all of these verts or edges or whatever are selected. So you can go to 1, 2, or 3, it doesn't matter, but just make sure you hit A and then just drag across. And what I do is I usually pick something in the middle. I expand Bisect here, and then I'm going to clear Inner. And what this is going to do is give me the, it's going to delete half of it, and that's the topper part, and it's going to give me my lower eyelid. Now what I'd like to do is fill that in here, and that'll fill it like that. Now I'm going to hit Tab and go back to Object Mode and hit S to scale that up just a little bit and move this down. And what that gives me is the ability to see the eyeball and then whatever I decide to be my upper lid, either one of those. So let's go to the next one, hit Tab, go to Edit Mode, and then same thing as before. I'm just going to match that line, so somewhere around here. And I'm going to do Clear Outer and then Fill. Let's hit A again. Let's try that again. There we go. And then Clear Outer this time. Come on. Looks like no faces got selected. There we go. Clear Outer. There we go. See that? And I'm going to fill that in and then Tab, go to Object Mode. And let's just hit G and sort of move this over like this a little bit. I'm going to scale that up to match the other. All right, now the next thing I need to do is open those eyes up a little. So I'm going to hit R and just rotate that. Select this one, hit R and rotate that. And then let's bring back our eyeball. And you can see there it is. Now what you can do is, for now, just right click Shade Smooth. I'm going to hit Shift R on each one of these to redo the last action, which is Shade Smooth. Let's kind of move this back just a little bit like that. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is just kind of create a silly smirk. Actually, all three of these need to be scaled down just a tad bit and moved back. And maybe off to the side here a little, like that. That's perfect. All right, let's select this. Let's hit Tab. Let's go to Edit Mode. And inside of here, what I'm going to do is, or actually, I want to go to Sculpt Mode. Is I'd like to smirk, like just kind of sculpt a little smirk across here with my clay brush, my clay strips brush. But there's a nifty tool here. If I turn on Dyn Topo and I select Brush Detail here, what that does is it allows me to sculpt and it'll add additional geometry based on my brush size. So if you need to see what that does, you can see here, if I make my brush smaller, it's adding a bunch more compressed geometry in there. So that's a really nice feature because we're going to be 3D printing it, so I'm not really worried about it for game stuff. Let's go back to solid here, and I'm just going to hold Control, and maybe my character's default pose is just kind of like a little smirk like this, and then I'll just add a little bit of clay down here and hold Shift to smooth that out, just to give him a little bit of a lip. I think that's good enough for that. And then for the eyebrows, I'm going to do the same. So just something like this. All right. And at this point, because I'm just sort of doing this, it's going to be maybe a default pose that's going to get printed later. Let's assume that I'm 100% happy for this assignment with this head. Okay. So what I want to do with all of these points is I'm going to tab over to object mode. And you have to make sure that each one of these is in object mode before you do this. I'm going to go through and for the eyeballs, for example, make sure that I am happy with how they look. So something like this. And that might look good. I kind of like the bigger upper lid. So with all of these selected, I'm going to just press M in here, like M, like mark, and then make this new collection as neutral, and then hit OK. And then I'm going to just sort of edit each one. So let's right click on this. Let's duplicate collection. I'm going to hide this collection, the visibility of it. And then for the quad sphere here, what I'm going to do is let's go over to this happy pose with the tongue and the teeth. So with that, I don't want to move too much away from this overall shape, otherwise it'll look weird. But I'm going to grab my clay brush. Well, first let's go to sculpt mode, right? So tab sculpt mode. Then I'm going to hit C, grab my clay brush, and I'm just going to dig in a fair amount into the mouth and just start to create something that looks like this shape where it's got a large bottom part there. I'm going to hold Shift to smooth this out a little bit. And because the shape is really just, it's a flat 2D shape in this world, I'm going to just kind of make my own little variation of that. So I'll give him a little bit of a lip here, keep carving that in. Now the way I can, hitting F by the way to shrink that and holding Control, the way I can add teeth is the same way I made the eyes is I'm just going to add another object. Actually, this mouth is way too circular here, so I'm just going to hit G for my grab brush, make my brush pretty big and just pull that out just a little bit. So something like this, and you can actually exaggerate it too if you go off this way, but I'm still not breaking that overall shape. So let's go back to object mode, Shift A, and I'm going to grab a cylinder, hit S to scale that down, let's hit G just to pull that forward, and I'm just going to position that somewhere in the front here. S and then Z to shrink that, S to scale that up, and same thing, just kind of pull this back with our G key. If it's easier for you, you can use your move brush, your move tool here to kind of get it where you need it to be. So I think for now, if I bring that down, it's looking pretty good. I'd like it to be the essentially the same. See how it kind of just butts up against the mouth here? So with this, I'm going to select the head and then press, hit Tab and go to Sculpt Mode. Then just press G for my grab brush. Kind of pull this in a little bit, pull this back, and then in. And just kind of keep shaping that smile like that. And these teeth might be a little bit too pronounced, so object mode, grab this one, just pull it back a little bit. That's a little bit better. And then let's actually carve in a bunch more. So sculpt mode, bring this down, hit Control, hitting C and then Control, and just keep carving back until I get see a fair amount of that teeth. Hit F, then hit G to grab, and then just pull that in. I can actually hold control and just push back some of this stuff too. There we go. So now it looks like there's no weird gums. And let's get a nice curve going on here too, inside of here. All right, carving this in. Actually, to be honest with you, I could do it with another sphere, and I thought about it, but I might just carve in a tongue like that. And then just bring this up like that. All right, there is my happy face. All right, and I think I might bring these up too. So let's hit G and really accentuate that happy look. So something like that. Then let's grab the top sphere here and just rotate that. Oops, not that one. So let's go to object mode, then hit R and rotate that up a lot like that. Really expand these eyes to push that pose. All right, that looks pretty good. I think that's good for now. In the next video, we have our happy. Let's make sure this is in it. We'll work on our maybe the next pose, which could be our sad.